Welcome to the deep dive. We are jumping into a stack of source material today to give you, well, maybe the ultimate shortcut.
A shortcut.
Yeah, not to sound smart about, current events, but to sound natural about your own life. We're talking survival English today.
Ah, okay. That's absolutely key. Because if you're aiming for real conversational fluency, you find out pretty quickly that the grammar books, they don't really teach you how people talk about the real stuff.
Exactly. The daily grind, setbacks, how you bounce back.
Right. We need those phrases, those phrasal verbs that actually capture that lived experience.
So our mission today is to take 4 really foundational phrasal verbs. I mean, these are absolute workhorses in English. You hear them constantly. And really unpack the subtle contexts. Where do they actually sound fluent?
Yeah, we're not just listing definitions here. This isn't like an audio textbook.
Definitely not. It's the user manual.
And we're specifically looking at the duality. How many of these phrases mean totally different things, depending on if you're talking about, say, an emotional crisis or just reviewing a document for work.
Right. And if you miss that nuance,
You miss the whole conversation, potentially.
or sound a bit awkward.
Okay, so the phrases we're diving into, the core 4, I'd say, of resilience and routine: go through, get up, get by, and pass out.
Good list. Ready to unpack.
Let's do it. Starting with the one that probably carries the most emotional weight, I think. Go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go through is a fascinating place to start. It links directly to life's realities because, well, its most common use is about difficulty.
You mean not physically going through a door, but...
Exactly. Non-physical. It means to experience something, usually something challenging, maybe painful.
This feels like one of the most useful ways to show sympathy, right, or empathy. If someone's struggling, you say, she's going through a tough time right now.
Perfect example. It's sensitive, it's natural. You're acknowledging their pain without demanding all the details. It's polite. It's like a respectful shorthand.
Totally. It covers all sorts of stress. Emotional, financial, medical, relationship stuff. The classic example, he went through a lot after losing his job.
And you just know that means weeks, maybe months of strain and worry.
Right. The speaker doesn't have to spell out what exactly the phrasal verb itself went through carries that weight.
But what's interesting, and you mentioned duality earlier, is how that weight just evaporates depending on the context.
Completely changes. Yep. If you shift to, say, a professional setting, the emotional load is gone.
So this is the first big duality we're talking about.
It is. In a business context, go through suddenly means something very different.
Yeah.
To examine or review something carefully, systematically.
Okay, so you're not suffering through the report.
No. You're analyzing it. Like, let's go through the expense report before the quarterly meeting. Simple as that.
Or I need to go through my emails, just checking them.
Exactly. So the key insight here for you, listening, is really the object of the verb. Are you going through a difficult time, a separation, an illness?
Then the subject, the person, bears the emotional cost.
Right. But if you're going through a document, a checklist, maybe a drawer full of old papers,
It's neutral, just examination.
it's just process. So one single phrase covers deep personal crisis and basic admin tasks. That's incredibly efficient language.
That dual function is powerful. Okay, so go through handles big experiences or structured analysis, but, often the biggest challenge is just the everyday, the start of the day.
The routine.
Which brings us neatly to our next phrase, a real cornerstone of daily life. Get up.
Yeah, this one seems basic on the surface, doesn't it?
Totally. We all know the main meanings. Rising from bed. I usually get up at 7 a.m.
Standard. Or standing up from a seat. He got up to answer the door. Physical movement.
Simple enough. But the real power here, the bit that makes you sound, well, totally fluent, is that little addition, that preposition to.
Ah, yes. Adding the to changes everything.
Suddenly, it's not just about movement.
Not at all. Think about the question, what did you get up to this weekend?
Right. If you hear that, you know instantly the phrase has completely jumped the tracks. It's not about literally getting up.
No, it shifts from rise or stand to something like, what were you busy with? Or, more simply, what did you do?
I actually remember getting tripped up by this when I first moved here. I told someone I got up to the park, meaning I, got out of bed and went there.
And how did that go down?
They gave me a funny look, like, why are you making this sound so complicated? Just say you went to the park.
That's a perfect illustration of the nuance, though. The basic verb, get up, is just about that vertical motion. Up from bed, up from a chair.
But get up to?
Get up to specifically implies activities, usually casual stuff, social things, maybe even, slightly mischievous things sometimes.
So it's informal.
Very. It's a signal the speaker is relaxed, asking for a chatty update, not a formal report.
Okay, so huge fluency marker then. If you want to sound casual friendly, asking, what did you get up to, is a great shortcut.
Definitely. And just remember that contrast. I get up at 6, that's about structure, routine. What did you get up to? That's social, it's curiosity.
Got it. So we've covered enduring hardship with go through and starting the day or asking about activities with get up. But so much of life, and actually language learning too, is about just managing, resourcefulness.
Making do.
Which leads us perfectly to phrase number 3, the one that speaks to resilience. Get by.
Get by. I like this one. It's wonderfully realistic, don't you think?
How so?
Well, it means to manage, to survive or cope. But typically when you're facing limits, limited resources, maybe limited time, limited skills.
No, it's not thriving.
Exactly. It's the opposite of flourishing. It's more like scraping through, managing okay, but doing it with, certain dignity.
The most obvious context is money, I guess. Survival.
That's probably the most common, yeah. I don't earn much at the restaurant, but I get by.
It implies you're stable, right? You're not sinking.
Correct.
Hmm.
But you're definitely not rolling in cash either. You have enough for the basics.
But the sources mentioned it's also key for talking about skills, especially language.
Oh, absolutely critical there. Think about when you were learning something new, a language, maybe a practical skill. When I first started coding, I could just about get by with the basics.
Or traveling? I can get by with basic English when I travel. It means you can communicate essentials, order food, ask directions.
But you're not having deep philosophical debates. You have functional ability.
Okay, question though. Does get by ever sound negative, like defeatist? If I say I just get by, could that sound like I'm complaining or unhappy?
That's a really good question. Context is key. But generally, especially North America and the UK, it has a positive or at least neutral, resilient spin.
So it's more about acknowledging limitations realistically.
Yes. It means you haven't given up. You're managing despite the challenges. It shows effort and a kind of realistic humility. If you really meant defeat, you'd probably say something more direct like, I'm really struggling or I can't cope.
So get by is more like quiet strength. It manages expectations.
Exactly that. Quiet strength. And we can even use it for managing time or scope. We only have 30 minutes for this deep dive, so we'll just have to get by with the main points today.
Acknowledging constraints, but promising to manage.
Right. Doing your best with what you have. It's about making it work.
That's very relatable. I think we're all trying to get by in some area of life most of the time.
Probably true.
Okay, so if you're going through a really tough time, and maybe you're just barely getting by, the physical consequence of all that strain might lead us to our final phrase, the one about physical collapse, pass out.
Right. Yeah, pass out is definitely linked to the body's reaction to extreme conditions, exhaustion, stress, heat.
The main definition, the sort of formal or medical one, is to faint, isn't it? Lose consciousness briefly.
That's the primary meaning, yes.
We know the standard examples. It was so hot and crowded in there, she passed out.
Or he passed out from dehydration near the end of the marathon. It signifies a temporary medical event, fainting.
Okay, that seems clear. But I suspect there's another layer here.
There absolutely is. Just like with Get Up, there's a crucial and, frankly, much more common informal use of pass out, especially in American English.
Which you really need to know for just, like, everyday chat.
Definitely. And this informal meaning is falling asleep really, really quickly because you're absolutely exhausted.
So not actually fainting, just crashing.
Precisely. You didn't have a medical issue, you were just incredibly tired. I was so wiped out after pulling that all-nighter, I basically passed out the second my head hit the pillow.
Everyone understands that means you just fell asleep instantly.
Exactly. Deeply, rapidly asleep due to exhaustion.
But okay, this feels like an area where you could easily cause confusion, right? If I use that slang meaning I passed out, maybe in a more formal setting, or talking to someone from a different region, could they misunderstand?
That is the critical point here. Yes, they absolutely could misunderstand. Context and audience are vital.
So rule of thumb.
If you're communicating formally, especially about health or in a medical context, always stick to the literal definition, fainting. Use the word faint, if that's what you mean.
And the casual meaning.
If you're chatting casually with friends, talking about being tired after a long day, a party, hard work with face, the slang meaning, falling asleep fast, is perfectly fine and very common.
So, office story about pulling late hours. Okay. Doctor's office describing symptoms. Not okay.
You got it. Knowing that boundary prevents uh, potentially alarming miscommunication. You don't want someone thinking you had a medical emergency when you were just really, really sleepy.
Yeah, that distinction seems pretty key to avoiding unnecessary panic.
Definitely keeps things clear.
Okay, brilliant. Let's try and bring this all together now. See how these four phrases can actually map out a real story. The arc of survival and coping.
Right. So we've covered go through experiencing difficulty or examining carefully.
Get up rising, standing, or informally, what you did.
Get by managing or coping, usually with limitations.
And pass out fainting, or informally, collapsing into sleep from exhaustion.
And the real power, as you said, is seeing them work together. That's how they really stick in your mind. It boosts your fluency. They tell a relatable story.
Okay, let's hear the full story test from the source material. How do these sound naturally woven together?
All right, listen to how this flows, describing a stressful period.
When I was in college, I used to get up really early, like super early, to study. Money was tight, so I just got by working part-time jobs. And during exams, oh man, I went through so much stress. There was one time I almost passed out just from pure exhaustion.
Wow. Yeah, that works perfectly. It paints the whole picture, the routine, the struggle, the resilience, the physical toll, all in just a few sentences.
And using those four essential phrasal verbs just naturally. It doesn't sound forced or like you're ticking boxes in a textbook.
No, it sounds like someone just telling you about a tough time they had. That's the goal, right?
That is absolutely the sound of real, relatable English. These phrases, they're like the connective tissue for talking about life's realities. Okay, so the challenge for you, listening right now, try to internalize that narrative structure. Take these four powerhouse phrases, go through, get up, get by, pass out, and maybe try creating your own short story. Think about a challenging time in your own past.
Yeah, make yourself use them in the right context.
See if you can make them sound natural.
And always remember that underlying theme of get by. Even if learning English or anything really feels tough sometimes, you will get by. You'll manage just fine as long as you keep practicing. Show that resilience. Keep engaging with these nuances.
We're here to help you through it.
Absolutely. We'll continue to go through this language journey together with you.
That was a great deep dive into the language of resilience and routine. Really useful stuff.
Glad you think so.
Hmm.
And next time, we're shifting gears completely. We've done coping with stress.
Now for something lighter.
Exactly.
Right.
Now we're tackling how to express shock and disbelief. Those really fun, highly conversational phrases for surprise.
Oh, like what?
Things like, no way. You're kidding me. Guess what?
Yeah.
And the classic, are you serious?
Ah, yes. The reactive phrases, those are brilliant. Can't wait to unpack those ones.
Me too. It should be a good one.
All right, then. I think it's time for us to maybe get up and stretch our brains after all that.
Good idea. See you next time. And whatever you get up to between now and then, don't pass out from excitement waiting for the next deep dive.